I'm guarding the royal prince, but who will save me from him? The music pulsed through my veins, a steady, intoxicating rhythm that drowned out the nagging voice in my head. The one that always reminded me of duty, expectations, and the weight of my last name. But here, under the flashing neon lights of the underground club, I wasn't Prince Alistair. I was just me. I laughed, tipping my drink back at strangers pressed in around me. The heat, the energy, the wild thrill of being anonymous, it was everything I ever wanted. No watchful eyes, no stiff formalities, no whispered rumors behind my back, just freedom. The beat dropped and I closed my eyes, letting it consume me. For once, I didn't have to be perfect. I didn't have to be anything at all. And then I felt it. A weight, a stare. I opened my eyes and my stomach dropped. Across the crowded dance floor, through the flashing lights and swirled bodies, I saw him. Those honey-colored eyes locked onto mine like a predator spotting its prey. Marcus. I froze. He stood there, arms crossed and his broad shoulders tense under the dark jacket. Even in the dim lighting, I could still see the sharp clench of its jaw, that barely restrained fury simmering beneath his cold exterior. Shit. My feet moved before my brain could even catch up, pushing through the crowd in a desperate attempt to disappear. I knew it was pointless, and Marcus always found me. Always. A hand gripped my arm, firm and unyielding. "Going somewhere, Your Highness?" His voice was low, but I could hear the anger in it, the warning. I yanked my arm away, turning to face him. "Marcus, come on, just one night. Can't I have one night?" He didn't budge. "We're leaving. Now." The frustration bubbled up inside me, but under it, something else stirred. The way that he looked at me, intense, unwavering. It sent a shiver down my spine. The club's flashing lights reflected off his deep brown hair, making it gleam like silk. I hated how effortlessly he commanded attention, even in a place like this. I crossed my arms. "You can't keep me locked up forever." He leaned in, his voice dangerously close to my ear. "I don't have to. You do a good job of getting yourself into trouble." His breath was warm, and for a moment, I forgot why we were arguing. His scent, clean, sharp, familiar, wrapped around me. Our eyes met again, and for a split second, something flickered between us. Something I didn't have the courage to name. "Let's go," he said, and this time, I didn't resist. A few hours later, Marcus slammed the door shut behind us, his jaw tight and his eyes burning with frustration. "What were you thinking, Your Majesty?" His voice was sharp, cutting through the tense silence of the small safehouse. "You could have been hurt, harmed, killed if any of our enemies reached you before I did." I rolled my eyes, shrugging off my jacket and tossing it onto the worn-out couch. "I was fine, Marcus. No one recognized me." His eyes darkened, and he took a step closer. "That's not the point." His voice was low, controlled, but I could hear the strain beneath it. "You can't sneak out whenever you feel like it. Your safety isn't a game." I scoffed, crossing my arms. "Well, maybe I wanted to feel normal for once. Ever think of that?" Marcus ran his hand through his dark hair, his frustration palpable. "You don't get to be normal, Alistar. You're the prince." His words stung me more than I cared to admit. "Right, I forgot. I'm just a crown on legs." He exhaled slowly, the tension between us thickening. The way that he looked at me, intense, unwavering, just made my pulse quicken in a way I wish it wouldn't. For a moment, we just sat there, too close, and the air between us charged with something neither of us dared to acknowledge. Finally, he sighed, his voice softening. "Please sleep well, Your Majesty. I'll be outside your door if you need anything." I watched him turn away, my chest aching. As I climbed into bed, I let out a long sigh, staring at the ceiling. When will he understand I need him with me in this bed, and not so far away? Flashback, 13 years ago. The first time I saw Marcus, I forgot how to breathe. He stood beside my father, tall and serious, his deep dark brown wavy hair tied back, honey-colored eyes watching me like he already knew every trouble I get into. He looked like a knight from my storybooks, strong, fearless, cool. "This is Marcus. He will be your bodyguard from now on," my father said. My own bodyguard? That meant he'd be with me all the time, right? I grinned. "You'll protect me?" Marcus gave a small, steady nod. "That's my job, Your Highness." I wrinkled my nose. "You can just call me Alistar." He hesitated, then smiled. A small, barely there smile, but I saw it. My heart did a weird little jump. "Do you like swords?" I asked. Marcus chuckled. "Yes. Will you teach me?" "If your father allows it." I really liked him already. 4 years later, Marcus is the only person who doesn't treat me like a fragile little prince. That's probably why I follow him around like a lost puppy. He trains with knights every morning, pretending I'm only there to learn. Really, I just like watching him. The way that he moves, the way his hair falls loose when he fights, and the way that his honey-color eyes flick to mine when he thinks I'm not paying attention. Today, he tosses me a wooden sword. "Come on, Alistar. Let's see what you've got." My heart leaps. "You finally think I'm ready?" "I think you'll complain until I do." I grin, attacking without warning. He dodges easily, smirking. I don't care that he's holding back. I just want to be close to him. I don't know when admiration turned into something else. I just know that when Marcus ruffles my hair after knocking me back flat, I wish he'd do it again. 5 years later, I shouldn't have looked at him like this. We were in the training yard and Marcus is fixing my stance, his hands firm on my waist, adjusting my grip, his breathing warm against my ear. My skin burns when he touches me, and I know it's not just from training. "Like this," he murmurs, stepping back. The absence of his touch stings more than the bruises from sparring. I turn to him, catching the way his eyes linger on me for a second, too long before he masks it with the ever-calm expression. He feels it too, and I know he does. But he never lets himself act on it. "You're holding back," I say, and I don't mean just in the fight. Marcus exhales, stepping farther away. "I can't, Alistar," but he wants to. I see it in the way his hands clench, in the way he won't meet my gaze. And that's how I know I'm not alone in this. Flashback ends. A few days later. It's been a few days since we returned back to the palace, and I've been stuck inside for all of them. Today, I barely had one foot out of the door when a strong hand grabbed my wrist and yanked me back inside. The door slammed shut and I found myself staring into Marcus's furious honey-brown eyes. "You're unbelievable," he hissed, his grip firm but not painful. "Are you seriously trying to sneak out again?" I jerked my arm back free, glaring at him. "Marcus, I just need some air." "Air," he scoffed, stepping closer, crowding my space. "Air doesn't require disguises and sneaking through the back door." I just rolled my eyes. "You're overreacting." "No, Alistar, I'm reacting exactly as I should when the future king of this country keeps putting himself in danger." His voice was low, controlled, but I hear the anger simmering beneath it. "Do you have any idea what would happen if you get caught? If the wrong people found you?" "I'm not a child, Marcus," I snapped, my chest rising and falling quickly. "I can take care of myself." He took another step forward, so close I could feel the warmth of him. "No, you can't. And that's why I'm here." Something in his voice, and the way his eyes searched mine, made my breath hitch. For a moment, we just stood there, too close. The tension between us thick enough to cut. His jaw was tight, his lips pressed into a thin line, but his eyes, they held something else. Something I wasn't sure I was ready to face. Finally, he sighed, stepping back. "Go back, Alistar, please." I swallowed hard, nodding. As I heard him settle outside the door, always close but never close enough, I only thought of one thing. When will he realize I don't need a guard? I need him. Over a week later, the tension had been suffocating for days. Every argument, every stolen glance, every touch that lingered too long. But tonight, it finally exploded. Marcus stood by the window, his back to me, fists clenched by his sides. "You can't keep doing this," he muttered, his voice low and strained. I was already seething, pacing the room like a caged animal. "Doing what?" I demanded. "Forcing you to admit the truth?" He turned, his eyes burning into mine. "There is no truth, Alistar. You're making something out of nothing." I laughed, sharp and bitter. "Nothing?" I stepped closer, my pulse hammering. "You look at me like I'm the only thing in the world. You touch me like you need me. Then you pull away like a coward." My voice dropped. "You can't keep lying to me. To yourself." His jaw tensed, but he didn't move. I pushed forward, shoving at his chest. "Say it. Say that you don't want me, and I'll stop." He caught my wrist, eyes wild with something I couldn't name. Alistair, stop. I yanked free, shoving him back again. No, you feel this. I know you do. So why? He snapped. 1 second, he was glaring at me. The next, he was on me, slamming me up against the wall with a force that knocked the breath out of my lungs. And then, his mouth was on mine. It wasn't soft. It wasn't gentle. It was raw. Desperate, like he'd been trying to fight it even as he gave in. His hands were in my hair, pulling, gripping like he couldn't get enough. I grabbed his shirt, yanking it closer, arching him against me, losing myself in the heat of him, in the way that he tasted like something forbidden. Marcus groaned against my lips. The sound sent a shudder through me. His hands roamed my body, memorizing, claiming, and I let him. Gasping into his mouth as his teeth scraped my jaw, his lips burning a trail down my neck. I had never wanted anything more. Then, just as suddenly as he snapped and pulled away, "No," I gasped, reaching for him, but he stumbled back like I was fire. Like touching me any longer would destroy him. His breathing was ragged, his eyes wild. We can't happen." I stepped forward, but he shook his head, backing away. "Alistair, stop." His voice cracked. "If you make me choose between you and my duty, I will lose everything." I stared at him, my heart breaking. "Maybe I already have." He didn't answer. He just turned and walked out, leaving me alone, chest heavy, lips bruised, and more sure than ever. Marcus was mine, and I would make him admit it. A few days later, we hadn't spoken about the kiss. Not really. Instead, he just tiptoed around it, pretending that nothing had changed even though everything had. However, he has been different ever since we kissed. More formal. He still calls me Your Majesty, still keeps that perfect professional distance, but I see the way his eyes linger a second too long, the way his jaw tightens when I push too close. Like now, I lean up against the doorframe, watching him clean his gun with slow, practiced movements. "You know," I say, trying to sound casual, "you don't have to call me Your Majesty all the time. Just Alistar is fine." His hand stills for a fraction of a second before he keeps cleaning. "I'm your bodyguard, not your friend," he mutters. I step closer, feeling the heat between us like an invisible wall. "But what if I want you to be more than that?" He exhales sharply, setting the gun down. His eyes met mine, and for a moment, I swear something flickered there. Something soft, something vulnerable, but it's gone just as fast. "I can't, Alistair," he says quietly. "I have a job to do, and you have a throne to think about." I swallow hard, my chest tightening. "I didn't ask for the throne." "You don't have a choice," he replies, his voice firm but gentle. "And neither do I." I want to argue, to tell him that I don't care about the throne, that I care about him, but before I can, he grabs the jacket and heads for the door. "Get some rest." As he walks out, I sink onto the bed, staring at the empty space where he stood. When will he stop pretending that he doesn't feel this too? 3 days later, the palace feels colder than I remember. The grand hall's towering ceilings is all suffocating now. I sit in my chambers, staring at the endless stack of documents in front of me, my head pounding with the weight of it all. Marcus stands by the window, watching the palace grounds like a hawk. He's been like this ever since the kiss. More distant, more guarded, like the night never happened. "You've been quiet," he finally says without looking at me. I sigh, leaning back in my chair. "Just thinking." "About?" I glance at him, my chest tightening. "Everything." His jaw tightens, but he says nothing. I push my chair back and stand, walking over to him. "Marcus, I can't do this." His eyes flicker to mine. "Do what?" I gesture around us. "All of it. The throne, the expectations, the endless rules." I pause, my voice softer, pretending like what happened between us meant nothing. He stiffens, turning to fully face me. "Alistar, it's not that simple. You have responsibilities. I have mine." I step closer, my heart pounding. "What if I don't want to be king?" I whispered, something unreadable in his expression. "And what if I can't let myself want you?" I reach for his hand, but he pulls away. "Your father's been asking about you. You should focus on that." Frustration boils inside me, but before I can argue, there's a knock at the door. A servant's voice calls out, summoning me to a council meeting. Marcus nods toward the door. "Tucci calls, Your Majesty." I don't say anything as I leave, but my heart feels heavier than ever. A week later, the palace halls are quiet tonight. too quiet. Marcus is by my side as we walk back to my chambers after yet another suffocating dinner with the royal court. My head is spinning with politics and veiled threats, but all I can focus on is the way that Marcus's hand hovers near mine, always close, never touching. We reach my door, and Marcus scans the corridor before unlocking it. "Get some rest," he says, his voice steady as always. I step inside, but before I can respond, a shadow moves behind him. "Marcus!" I shout. He reacts instantly, spinning around just as the blade slashes the air. He shoves me backward, drawing his weapon in a heartbeat. The assassin lunges again, and Marcus blocks the attack with brutal efficiency, knocking the attacker to the ground with a swift strike. Everything is a blur. Guards rush in, shouts echo down the hallway. And the next thing I know, Marcus is pulling me inside, slamming the door shut behind us, and his chest rises and falls rapidly, his face grim. "You okay?" he asks, scanning me for inquiries. I nod, my hands shaking. "Marcus, what the hell just happened?" He presses his back against the door, listening for any sounds outside. "It was an inside job," he says, his voice tight. "Someone knew exactly where you'd be." The realization chills me to the bone. "Someone in the palace wants me dead." Marcus nods, his eyes burning with a fierce protectiveness. "And I am not leaving your side until we figure out who." He moves closer, his hands gripping my shoulder, grounding me. "Alistar, I need you to trust me." I swallow hard, meeting his gaze. "I do, but deep down, I know that trust might not be enough to save us." A few days later, Marcus and I sit in my chambers, poring over reports and letters spread across the desk. Every document, every scribbled note feels like a potential clue leading to a traitor within the palace. The dim candle flickers between us, casting long shadows that match the tension in the air. "This one." Marcus taps the letter, his voice low but firm. "It's coded, but look at the signature. It's someone high up." I lean closer, my pulse quickening. "Duke Ferrand," I murmur, feeling the weight of that name. One of my father's trusted advisors. Marcus' jaws tighten. "He's been feeding information to your enemies, your routines, your movements, everything." The realization hits me like a punch to the gut. I trusted him. Marcus watches me carefully, his honey eyes filled with concern. "We need proof before we can take this to the king." I nod, swallowing hard. "And what if we don't get this in time?" He places a reassuring hand on mine, his touch grounding me. "Then I'll protect you, no matter what." For a moment, I let myself believe that with Marcus by my side, I can face anything. But deep down, I know how dangerous this game is. "We'll have to go to the archives tonight," I say, determination hardening my voice. "If Ferrand's involved, there'll be something there." Marcus squeezes my hand briefly before letting go. "Then let's move." As we slip into the darkened halls, the weight of the throne and my growing feelings for Marcus feels heavier than ever. 2 days later, the council chamber is packed with tension. My father sits at the head of the long table, his cold gaze sweeping over me and Marcus. Across from us, Duke Ferrand looks calm. Too calm. I grip the evidence tightly in my hands. "Your Majesty, we have proof that Duke Ferrand has been working with our enemies." My voice is steady, but my heart pounds in my chest. Ferrand scoffs, leaning back in his chair. "Lies and paranoia, Your Majesty. From a reckless prince and an overstepping bodyguard." I step forward, laying the documents on the table. "These coded letters, the altered financial records, the false reports, it's all here." My father's eyes narrowed as he studies the papers. Marcus stands protectively beside me, silent but watchful. "You dare accuse me?" Ferrand snarls, rising to his feet. "This is absurd." I don't flinch. "Not absurd, Ferrand. You've been working with our enemies to weaken this kingdom, undermining my father's trust in me in every turn, and now you've tried to kill me. All to pave the way for yourself, to take control." Ferrand's eyes flash with fury, but his calm demeanor falters just for a moment. "You're insane, Alistar. I've always served the crown. You're just a spoiled prince who thinks the world owes him." I don't let his words deter me. "You wanted me gone because I stood in your way. You've been plotting, trying to manipulate my father so you can control the throne. But it ends here." My father looks at me, then at Marcus, his gaze sharp but unreadable. "You have done well, Alistar." His voice is controlled, but there's something icy in it. "However, I cannot ignore other concerns." My stomach twists. What do you mean? His gaze shifts to Marcus. It has been brought to my notice that your actions have been distracting my son. Marcus stiffens beside me. Your Majesty, my only concern is the prince's safety. The king's expression darkens. Perhaps, but the cult whispers otherwise. This closeness between you two, it is dangerous. I step forward, my voice desperate. Father, Marcus saved my life. We wouldn't have uncovered this without him. But my father's decision is already made. Marcus will be removed from his post, effective immediately. The words hit me like a slap. No, you can't. Enough. His voice is final. This is not up for debate. I turn to Marcus, my heart breaking. Marcus, please. He meets my gaze, his face unreadable. I'll leave tonight, Your Majesty. And just like that, the walls of the palace feel like they're closing in. The ugly truth of royalty. They hardly care about the truth. If anything tarnished the crown or its reputation, it had to be gone. The next day, the halls were eerily silent as I stormed through them, my heart pounding in my chest, my father's words still ring in my ears. Marcus is being executed for treason. No, not true. It can't be true. The so-called treason? Being a distraction to the crown prince, tarnishing the royal family's reputation. My father had been willing to let him leave, had ordered him to go, but Duke Ferdinand, vindictive, calculating, wasn't satisfied with that. Surely he had poisoned my father's mind, twisted the truth, convinced him that letting Marcus live was a risk too great to take. And now, Marcus is set to die. My breath comes sharp and fast as I push forward, my nails digging into my palms. No, I won't let this happen. I don't care what it takes. I will save him. I slam open the doors to the throne room. You can't do this! The king sits in his grand chair, his expression cold and unyielding. Alistar, I have tolerated your distractions long enough. Marcus is a liability. I step forward, desperation clawing at my throat. He's not a traitor. He's the only reason why I'm still alive. My father's eyes narrow, and yet his presence has made you reckless. The rumors about you two have spread, and I will not allow scandal to touch this throne. I clench my fists, my voice shaking. Then punish me, not him. The king's lips press into a thin line. You will do your duty, Alistar. Marcus will be executed at dawn. No. I whisper, my vision blurring. Please. The guards step forward, ready to remove me, but Marcus appears behind me, calm and composed. Your Majesty, he says, his voice steady. If my life keeps Prince Alistair safe, then so be it. I whip around him, grabbing his arm. No, I won't let this happen. He looks at me, something heartbreaking in his gaze. You have to let me go, Alistair. Tears burn in my eyes as the guards drag him away. I love you. I choke out, but my father doesn't flinch. And as the heavy doors close, I realize I have one night to save him, or lose him forever. At the first crack of dawn, I stand there, the weight of the moment crashing down on me like a storm. My father's gaze is as cold as ever, but I feel the tension, the crackling energy between us. I've never spoken to him like this before, never dared, but today I have no choice. Father, this is wrong, I say again, more forcefully this time. You can't just end Marcus's life like this. You can't just end Marcus's life like it's nothing. You can't treat him like a pawn in some political game. He glares at me from his throne, eyes like ice. You are the crown prince, Alistar. Your duty is to the throne, to the kingdom. You do not get to choose what happens to the people around you. You're wrong, I retort, my voice shaking with the intensity of my anger. I am the prince, but I am also a man. And I am telling you, I will not let you destroy the only person who stood by me. His eyes narrow. You are not in a position to make demands, Alistar. I take a step closer, my chest tight, every word feeling like it might be my last. I am in a position to make demands. And if you don't stop the execution, if you don't let Marcus live, then I will walk away from this crown. I will leave everything behind, everything that you've built, for the life I want for his life. His face twists with disbelief. You would throw away the kingdom for a bodyguard? I meet his gaze with all the defiance I can muster. Yes, I would. Because Marcus is more than that to me. He's the only person who's ever truly cared about me. And if you think I'll let you take him away, you're wrong. My heart is pounding in my ears, but I push on. And if you want the crown to live, for me to live, you will choose me. Not the throne, not the kingdom's reputation, me! I pause, the words hanging in the air like a death sentence. And if you can't do that, then I will walk away from it all. From the crown, from the life that you planned for me, because I won't live without him. The silence between us is deafening. My father's expression hardens, but I know I've said everything I needed to say. It's his move now. 3 days later, the fire crackles softly in the corner in the room, its warm glow casting flickering shadows across the stone walls. Marcus and I sit side by side, the silence between us comfortable. Though it's heavy with everything that's happened, I can't believe the king actually agreed. After all the tension, the threats, it feels like a dream. I glance at Marcus, who's leaning back against the wall, his eyes focused on the flames. There's a sense of calm around him, like nothing can shake him, and I find it comforting. I didn't think that he actually let you live, let alone stay, I say quietly, breaking the silence. Marcus gives a small smile, his eyes flickering towards me. He didn't have much of a choice, did he? I laugh softly, the sound a little shaky. Guess not. There's a quiet weight in the air, the knowledge that this isn't over. We're allowed to be together, but only in secret. For now. The court doesn't know the depth of what Marcus means to me, and it has to stay that way for our safety. Marcus shifts slightly, his hand brushing against mine, sending a small shock through me. We'll be careful, he says, his voice steady. We'll make it work. I nod, feeling a warmth spread through my chest. We will, and we'll fight for this. He looks at me, his gaze soft but filled with something intense. Whatever happens, Alistar, I'm not going anywhere. I smile, heart swelling with everything that I feel for him. We're in this together, and I know it's true. Whatever challenges we face next, we'll face them side by side. For the first time, I'm not afraid of what's ahead, because I have him with me, and that's all that matters. Conclusion. Time has passed, and here I am, the ruler of this kingdom. It wasn't easy, but I finally found my place. I've learned that with power comes responsibility, but I also made one rule. No one will ever be condemned for who they love. The kingdom will be better for it. Marcus is still by my side, not just as my bodyguard, but as my partner. He keeps me safe, yes, but he also makes me feel alive, loved, and understood. We fought for this, together, and now I can finally live my life the way that I've always wanted, with him by my side no matter what. And that's all that matters. The end. Do you think Alistair did the right thing by choosing love over the crown? Let us know what you think. Thanks for watching, and please consider subscribing to be part of our Rainbow Force. And as always, stay wholesome.